had them for about, didn't have the greatest amount of time before we started rolling. I had them for about 6 weeks before we started shooting. Very short timeline to do any kind of transformation, as you're probably aware. And then I had them for the duration of the shoot as well. So it was a good 10 months spent with them both. So yeah, that's another one of my bows.
What did they expect in 6 weeks? What was the kind of expectation there?
I mean, they weren't completely unrealistic. They understood that it was a short amount, it was a short period of time. Unfortunately, it was just the way the casting process had taken so long. Like, they had originally allowed for more time, but the casting process, like, they didn't cast till quite late in the day, which is quite rare. So they were aware that I didn't have long.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Today I am joined by JoJo Batten, and she has an incredible story and also position within the film industry. So Jo is a stunt performer, a stand-in, and also a PT within the film industry. And I met her a few years back on a photo shoot, which was a really funny experience, and I'm sure we'll get into that as well. But thank you so much for coming on to the podcast today, Jo.
No problem. Thank you for inviting me on.
No, it's honestly a pleasure. And I've been trying to get this sorted for a while, and we just haven't been able to sort our diaries together. But I'm so excited to talk to you about the film industry. I love films myself. I already kind of have a brief insight into kind of what you do, as we've spoken in the past. But please start talking to me about how you got into stunt performing and what that kind of entails.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to have to go back a fair few years to the start of that, the conception of that journey. I've been in the industry for over 20 years now. It's been on and off because I've done other things. I've kind of come and gone from the industry, doing other things, weaving in and out, and it's developed over time. But I kind of first entered the industry at kind of basement level, supporting artist kind of work. I joined up an agency when I was kind of early, when I was 20 actually, and just I got quite a lucky break quite early on in the start of that journey, on a Guy Ritchie film, Rock and Roller. Yeah, I don't know if have you seen it?
Yeah.
It's a wicked film. So I got chosen to double and stand in for Tandy Newton on that film. So I was kind of like plunged into the deep end, having like had kind of like not really much set experience. Like, I remember turning up on the first day to the first location was this house in Mile End in East London, and I was introduced to Gerard Butler, Tandy Newton, Guy Ritchie obviously, and I was just completely overwhelmed and was like, what the hell am I, like, what is going on, what am I doing?
Start though.
Yeah, it was a proper baptism of fire, which is like, it's kind of like the perfect way to start anything, really. Like, looking back on it, at the time I was absolutely petrified. But yeah, I just kind of like pulled up my big girl's pants and got on with it, and just got to know everyone on that set really, really well. Guy is he works in a very particular kind of way, and he keeps the team around him very tight. Like, he's worked with the same people throughout the years. So yeah, I just got to know those guys really well, and I got on with them so well. Just like, I was the same kind of vibe that Guy is and his team are. And yeah, that was kind of like my first foray into the film industry, and kind of how I got into it. Yeah.
Honestly, that's mad. I had a brief experience. I don't know if you know this, actually. When I went to India, I was out there working as how do I explain it? It sounds so horrible when I say it out loud, but as like a celeb PT, basically. I got sent out there, and like, all of a sudden I just had this experience, like, opportunity. A director called me, and I thought it was a joke to begin with, and they were just looking for, again, how do I say it without sounding horrible? Like, I think he literally said, like, white muscly guy Honestly, that's what he said. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not sure if I qualify for that, but yeah, like I'd love to. Like I've loved film for so long. And, you know, after speaking to you about things a few years ago, I was like, I would love it. Like I just wanted to kind of get involved. And it was such a weird experience seeing the kind of reality of film versus you know, what you expect it to be like. You know, you see the finished product at the end,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was a real like eye opener, like actually getting involved in it. I only did like a couple of weeks of filming, but it was grueling. Like I just turned up, and I mean, I didn't really, I think I had a few lines and stuff, which was hilarious actually, because they wanted me to speak in Tamil, which I don't know if,
No way.
yeah, honestly, it was so funny because they were like, yeah, it's so easy. And now obviously they'd like, that was their native tongue. And I was like, yeah, but I don't even speak Hindi, which is like the Indian native tongue. And like,
Exactly.
I was like, Tamil's like a big step for me. So like, I did try for so long, but I was trying so hard to remember my lines that like when the director was like, yeah, no, let's just do this in English. I was like, if that was an option, why were you getting me to speak Tamil? I was like, what? I was like, just get nah. But anyway, I remember thinking like the hours were so long, and like,
Yeah.
first world problems, but even like the food, you know, there just wasn't food breaks and stuff like that. I was thinking,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how people do this for like 8, 10, 12 months of the year, however long it is. And I was just,
Exactly. Yeah, that's the reality of the film industry, unfortunately. Like everyone, like I don't know, people have preconceptions of any industry that they're not actually involved in, they're not actually working in. And I'm sure the film industry does have this kind of, you know, the side that everyone sees, the glamour and the glitz and the premieres and the parties and the celebrities and all that side, but the reality on, you know, when you're in the trenches and you're actually working in the industry is grueling work. You're like the number one complaint about the film industry for anyone working in the film industry, especially if you're crew, the hours. They're insane. Yeah, there's no other way to say it. They're just insane. You're working, you're kind of like your base day is a 12-hour set day. So even if you were to do like a 5-6 day week doing 12 hours a day, it's a lot. And then you add on overtime because you're inevitably going to get overtime, and we're talking like, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours overtime some days. It's relentless, and you're doing that for, like you say, you're doing it for months on end. There are some jobs where you just you get to the halfway point and you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't do this.
yeah. I mean, I've seen on your story as well where, you know, you've been rocking up to set at like 4, 5 a.m. and, you know, you hadn't finished like the previous day until, you know, midnight or whatever. And I don't know how you do it for that long time. Like I am evil without my sleep. Like I did a project recently, like where it was just extra work, and that was night shift. And I remember we were finishing at what, 6, 7 a.m. and didn't get back till, you know, it was like an hour away from my home. So I was get back till like 8, and then I was basically just sleeping for a couple of hours and then turning back up again because traffic and, you know, the call time before you actually start work. I was ruined. It was like a week. It was only a week. I feel so bad. I feel so bad moaning to you about this, but it was like
hear about it. Your week.
Yeah, it was like a week. And like, I needed like a week to recover after that. Like I suck on no sleep. Like I'm so bad. I'm evil. I just,
Can you imagine doing like a, you know, these films now, the minimum that you're working on a film for, if you're doing a full contract, is 6 months, you know, and then some of them bleed over like well over a year. So you're doing 12, 13 months of these kind of hours. Like the last stint that I did, so I did kind of 2 films fairly back to back-ish, like Batman onto Ant-Man. It took me a good month or 2, like after I wrapped both of those films, to start to film kind of normal again. It takes a while. It really takes it out of you.
Yeah. So you just mentioned 2 of your projects there, actually, and that's really interesting because I actually haven't asked you yet, but I know some of the projects that you've been on. Talk to me about some of the projects that you've been on, because some of them are fascinating. And I remember when I first met you, You kind of just like casually, which I loved, obviously. You just casually dropped out, you know, as in like, yeah, I'm just like a stunt performer. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, you know, what kind of things have you done? And you just dropped a list of like epic films and projects that I was just like, never casually drop that into conversation. You should own that shit and be like, yeah, I've done this. So yeah, talk me through some of them.
Yeah, I guess like it's my job. It's just my job. And I know it's a privileged job and it's a great position to be in, and I get to experience some incredible things and I meet incredible people along the way. But yeah, your job's your job. It normalizes very quickly for you, especially when you're doing these kind of like long contracts and you're day in, day out in the trenches. It's work. It's work. But yeah, no, I've been very lucky. I've worked, like I mentioned, Guy Ritchie was kind of how I got my foot in the door and how I got started in the industry. And like I said, he likes to use the same people again and again. So I kind of did a good stint on Guy Ritchie films, Rock'n'Roller, the Sherlock Holmes films, King Arthur, and then I've done, because films have because I'm in the stunt performer PT side of things. It's mostly action-based films. So you've got all the kind of like the Marvel and DC films. So Justice League, Batman, like I mentioned. Terrible. I should have this like list that I should be able to like tick off, but you forget what you've been on and you forget what you've done because there's been so many and they just kind of roll into each. I did Aladdin with Guy Ritchie as well. Maleficent 2, that was Disney. Gosh, what else is there?
Going further back, I'm sure you said you did was it Jurassic World as well?
No, not me. Okay,
I'm sorry.
And another stunt performer that you chat with.
Well, yeah. Okay, so talk to me about the difference between, because I don't really fully understand myself. So you're a stunt performer, stand-in. What's the difference?
Okay, so when standing in is kind of how I got started in the industry. That was like the first job that I did, the one that I mentioned with Guy Ritchie and Tandy Newton. Mm-hmm. So when you stand in for an actress, basically they have to set up every scene, get the cameras ready, get the lighting ready, get the sound right. They want to get everything right. So when the actress walks onto set, she doesn't have to, she goes straight on and the cameras roll and they can get straight into the action and they don't have to faff around. Mm-hmm. Faffing is the biggest part of the film industry. It takes up the majority. This is why we have such long days. Like the actual amount of filming that happens during that day is, you might get minutes of footage. Do you know what I mean? And the majority of the day is spent around getting the shot set up because the lighting has to be perfect. Yeah, it's a lot of work goes into that. So as a stand-in, your job is to go through the actions of the scene as the actress would. So you need to know the dialogue, you need to know the action, and you basically play out the scene and you rehearse the scene exactly how it's going to be before the actress gets on set. So so the most recent film that I did this on was for Batman, which is out very soon, March 4th, very excited. And I was standing in for Zoe Kravitz on that one, Catwoman. And it was amazing. So basically every scene that if you watch the film, every scene that you see with Zoe Kravitz in as Catwoman, I ran through, I did that action before she did it, basically, to get the cameras right and to get the angles and lighting and the positioning, just to rehearse everything. Yeah, so I needed to know the full script. I needed to know her script. So basically I did her role in a very, very like minor way for a lot less money before she did it, type thing.
Yeah, that's insane. I honestly, I'm really looking forward to that because I remember seeing the casting for that and I was very intrigued. I was thinking very, very different kind of direction. I'm looking forward to it, actually. I think it'll be very, very cool. From the little bits that I've kind of seen, I think it'll be a very cool spin on things. So I think
people are going to be very, I know the casting, particularly of Rob, raised a few eyebrows. He blew it out of the park. Like, people are going to be, jaws will drop. It's
Yeah,
incredible.
it
It's
looks
incredible.
like the trailer as well. I was just like, yeah, I
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I've got really the cinematographer involved, Greg Fraser. He's one of the best. He was involved in The Mandalorian. I think he got an Emmy recently for his work on The Mandalorian. So the cinematography is going to be awesome. The director, Matt Reeves, obviously just so passionate about like it's his baby, like for any director. Yeah, it's everyone involved in that film, blood, sweat and tears. We shot over COVID as well, so it was challenging. But yeah, I think the results are gonna show the passion and the dedication that like everyone put into that film.
How did that change things? Because that's an interesting point, because obviously COVID kind of stopped the world for 6-12 months, and I think it stopped the filming, didn't it, for a little while?
It did. We were like, I think we started rolling. We'd been rehearsing November, December, so that was 2019, wasn't it? Start of 2020, we'd been rolling January, February, we'd been filming, and then COVID hit, and then we had to shut down. I think we shut down March, April, May, June, maybe July, 4 or 5 months before the film industry kind of found a way of working around COVID, which involved daily testing. We were wearing masks. We were social distancing as much as you can possibly social distance on a set with a few hundred people on it. It's not easy, but yeah, they found a way of making it work, and we were able to get back on with it. And it wasn't easy. Definitely wasn't easy. I did as if filming isn't hard enough, I did like an extra layer of complications to your day, but we did it. So yeah, props to the production team for that, because that was a difficult job.
Was it a mask set as well? Because I know some of the features kind of just blended in like masks underneath like props and all that sort of stuff.
How do you mean?
So I was speaking to some of the other people that I know. They kind of, some of the sets that they had, they enforced even masks on filming. So like the I can't remember what they're called, the little medical masks that underneath, if there was like scenes where there was extras or whatever, they kind of fit that in with the props. So they had like scarves over their face.
I see what you mean. Yeah. They actually some genius came up with it. I don't know if you must have seen on other people, like they were literally printing people's faces on
yeah.
They're so creepy. I had one. I had a few made for me, and I thought they were horrendous.
Yeah.
But they did help, because say you've got like we had to really scale down the scenes where we were supposed to have thousands of background in some of the scenes, but we had to really scale down those scenes. But where possible, where people are really kind of deep distance background, they had these masks on with their face printed on them. So yeah, there was that side of things. And then when the main stars of the film, literally the masks were on up until rolling. Mask came off, and as soon as they cut, mask back on again. It was like as much as possible, and we would only shoot for 2 minutes at a time. Say we were in a very enclosed space, shoot for 2 minutes at a time, cut, open the big doors, ventilate. It just wow. It was a lot.
Yeah. So how long did Batman take then?
Oh, it took, I think it was like 14-15 months altogether. It was a long stint. It was a long stint. My record. Yeah.
Can I go back about 20 minutes when I was moaning about the week?
Exactly. Thank you very much.
I'll just erase that. I feel so bad now. Yeah. Damn, you need to get a grip, mate. Like,
you do. You need to man up.
That was a week. Oh man.
Can you imagine? It's weird, as human beings, we're so adaptive, and we'll adapt to anything. And of course, like you have to manage your time and your energy as best as possible. Like you know what you're dealing with, for the next few months. You've got to manage your time and energy. Like it's down to you. No one's going to do it for you. So you have to be really careful. Like my training comes right down. Like I'm not worried about, I'm not putting any pressure on myself to like do a certain amount of sessions per week or anything like that. It comes right down. My sleep is my priority. Like I went through something a few years ago, so now it's like that's the first thing on my mind. Sleep is my priority. I don't care if I'm going to bed, if I get home at like 8 p.m. and I'm in bed by 9 p.m. like I need that sleep. I want that sleep. So that's my priority.
So how do you, I mean, I don't want to say balance because I think it's like a really weird word anyway, but how do you, I mean, you mentioned the sleep is your priority, but what else do you focus on to make sure that, you're not just turning up, going to work, going to bed?
That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
You've just got to accept it for your duration on a shoot, that is pretty much what you're going to be doing. You're going to be getting up, you're going to be heading to the studio, you're going to be doing your day's work, you're going to be getting home, you may have something to eat, you're going to be getting into bed, and you're going to be doing that for a few months. Like, you kind of have to accept that is that's how it is, and if you want to work in the industry, that's your reality.
Yeah. Is that 5 or 7 days?
It depends. 5 days is the minimum you'll be doing, but you do get to a point on most shoots, I think, where you do, especially towards the end of the shoot, when things ramp up and they realize, we've only got this amount of time left, you do start doing 6-7 days a week. It's definitely not unheard of.
Okay.
It's rough.
Now I feel even worse. moaning about my 5-day week. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's
man.
rough.
Okay. So talk to me a little bit about, I know you do PT, you have done PT for a long time. How does that kind of blend with the fitness industry and the film industry?
So, I've kind of, I would say most of my clients have been in the film industry for the past 10 years, probably, either in a very official capacity, in that I've been hired as a PT to get actors and actresses ready for a role, either like a physical transformation, or just in terms of I worked with the cast of Cats the musical. So I was a trainer on set for that, and that was more for a kind of a maintenance injury prevention type training capacity, rather than transformations. To say, I worked on Aladdin. That was a transformation. So Mina Masood and Naomi Scott, who were playing Aladdin and Jasmine, I worked with them. I had them for about, didn't have the greatest amount of time before we started rolling. I had them for about 6 weeks before we started shooting. Very short timeline to do any kind of transformation, as you're probably aware. And then I had them for the duration of the shoot as well. So it was a good 10 months spent with them both. So yeah, that's another one of my goals.
What did they expect in 6 weeks? What was the kind of expectation there?
I mean, that they weren't completely unrealistic. They understood that it was a short amount, it was a short period of time. Unfortunately, it was just the way the casting process had taken so long. Like, they had originally allowed for more time, but the casting process, like, they didn't cast till quite late in the day, which is quite rare. So they were aware that I didn't have long. Expectations was, just trust me, I was like very careful when it came to setting expectations, because I didn't want to so I think also what happened with that was that the shooting schedule was made so that if there were any shots that required like a full like body kind of shot, they were scheduled for a bit later on in the schedule, so we had a bit more time before that kind of like first big reveal of especially Mina, of how he was looking. So I think we probably had, a good 2.5 to 3 months before he had his like main reveal shot, which was very helpful.
So much more manageable than 6 weeks.
A lot more manageable. Exactly. I mean, we made great progress. Like, Mina was we're still really, really good friends. Mina was like your ideal, perfect, compliant client. Like,
Yeah.
he was the dream client. Like, he knew what he needed to do. It was very clear in his head, and he wanted it, and he put the work in. And he went, he's one of those clients that went the extra mile. So yeah, that helped.
Those clients are insane as well, because you can tell them to do anything and they will get the best results because their adherence is just so high.
Exactly. The perfect client. You want everyone. You want all your clients to be like that.
If only.
If only.
Literally, if every single client was like that, your business would just be phenomenal, because it would just be so easy. You'd be like, right, go do this. They'd smash it, and your results would be next to none.
All right.
So how does that look? I mean, obviously you've said yourself, the kind of schedule is just unforgiving. How do you manage to fit their kind of filming schedule in as well as PT?
You fit it in where you can. So when I'm a PT on those kind of jobs, I am, my time is theirs basically. So they pay me a certain amount, so I am there on call from early till late, and especially on Aladdin, on Aladdin and Cats, we fitted in the sessions where we could. So it would be very early morning, or it would be right at the end of the day, when they finished. Yeah. I was frequently the very, very last person to leave the studio, because I would wrap up with Mina at, it was 9-10, and then I'd get to go home, and I would have been there, since 6 a.m, just like, when's he gonna get that window?
That's rough. So what do you do in that time frame then? Like, you just sit and I
was in great shape.
Yeah, actually, yeah, thinking about it, probably just train. But
I did. I trained myself, and there were other people. There were the kind of other crew that were popping in. I'd be helping other people out. I wish I'd had my online stuff kind of going at that point, because that would have been an ideal scenario, but I hadn't back then. I've only just started kind of going down that road, but I found ways to entertain myself and keep going. I was competing at the time, so it was actually quite handy for me.
Awesome. Was that back in was that UKBFF days?
That was UKBFF days.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Are you making a return soon?
I feel like, okay, this is a different one. I feel like there's unfinished business there, because so that was like my first and only year of competing, basically. Yeah. It's 2000. Are we talking 2017 or 2019? I can't remember. I'm terrible with dates. And I entered my first competition, the UK. It was a St Albans show, and it was one of those things I'd always had on my bucket list to do. I just wanted to tick that box. And I was like, I'll just do one show and tick that box. And I did it, I prepped myself, did everything myself. I didn't hire anyone. I just kind of like bumbled along doing what I thought was the right thing to do, and won that show. I was like, I remember that feels good.
I think I'd just moved to India at that time, and I think we'd spoken on that shoot about you competing. Because you were like, I don't know. I was like, you should totally do it. Like, you'll love it. And like, you just had like the potential for it. So I was like, go do it, please. And, and then I saw you'd won. I was like, no way, insane.
It was insane. I honestly did not expect it. Mm-hmm. And then I found out that there was a show coming up that would have qualified me for the British finals. So I was like, let's have a go. Let's see where this goes. So I entered that show. I think that show was in, where was that one? Leicester. And I won that one. And then I qualified. So I qualified for the British. And then I went to the British finals, which is in Nottingham, which was at the end of that year. I think it was around October, maybe November. I can't remember, November time. And I think I came third. But that that qualified me for some of the European shows. but then after that, work just kind of became, my film work just got absolutely hectic, and I just didn't have time to devote to prepping. So I kind of feel like, do you know what I mean, I was on like some kind of path there, and I could have possibly got on my pro card. I'm not saying that would have definitely happened, but I was definitely, you know, heading towards that direction. So I kind of feel like there's unfinished business there, but also, like, you know what prep's like.
Yep.
It's a big old demand. It takes a lot out of you, and for what, at the end of the day? Like, I don't know. I don't know whether it's hard to know whether it's worth it.
Yeah, it's all encompassing, isn't it? You know, prep, it's so challenging, it's rewarding, but I think it just depends on what you want at the end of the day. Like, what's the end goal?
Exactly. It's like, what are your priorities at the moment? And I think my priorities have changed now. Like, back then it was great, I did it, I got that box ticked, and I'm really happy I did it, and I'm really happy that I put myself through the process and proved to myself that I could do it. But I've done that now. Do I really want to return to that? You know, I'd love to. I'm gonna do another shoot with Simon again. Actually, I want to prep again I want to get into shoot condition again, so I can get some good shots done. But yeah, I don't think I'll take it. I don't think I'd go as far as to compete again.
Yeah, that's where my head is at now. I've competed, I've done that. And to be honest, like, I've got to that point in life where business is more important to me. My social events are more important. It's just, I think I took it to the unhealthy extreme, basically. I just competing and training and dieting, it just became my life. And there was nothing more to it. And that's not what I want. I want more.
Yeah, I mean, you have to stand up on stage in the condition that they're expecting. You do have to take it to an unhealthy stage. You know, even if you are doing it in the most holistic and healthy way possible, it's still unhealthy. You're still not supposed to be at those body fat levels for any duration of time. It's not a healthy state to be in. So I think it's a very rare person that stands up on stage and can say that they're mentally in a really good place, you know, health wise in a really good, hormonally in a really good place. I just don't think you can do. It's just not a healthy thing.
Yeah, I really took it to the next level because I'm so competitive as well. Like, it's just wrong how competitive I am. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, even if it's a bit of a joke between mates, like, I'm that unhealthily competitive guy that just wants to win. Like, it just doesn't matter. Like, if it's family Monopoly, you know, I am just renowned for just don't play with Dan because he will win and he will do anything in his power to win. And like,
I get it. I've got that mentality as well. I've managed to like tone it down in my age. I've mellowed a little bit. I have mellowed a little bit. What did we play over Christmas? We had a family game. I can't remember what it was, but usually I'm that person. I'm like out to win it. I don't care who gets in my way. But this Christmas I managed to like tone it down, and I was like, we'll let someone else win this year.
I mean, I really try. I'd love to say it's toned down a little bit, and I think it has, but yeah, there's still that like inside, that internal like niggle that's like, come on, win, let's do this. I don't know. I think it's because I've always been so heavily involved in sport, and I think that's kind of the natural process of things, isn't it? You know, when you compete in anything, it's to win, isn't it, really? And I think that whole participating for fun thing, like, I just don't think I've ever gotten bored on it. And it's, you know, something that I definitely struggle with now. Like, even with my own training, like, I get so competitive with myself, and I've got to beat myself, and then I've got to, you know, improve. And with business, like, I think it's just a very easy kind of slope to get on board with, because you're like, okay, cool. Well, if I lifted this much last week, I can go more. If I did this many reps, I can do more. If I earned this much money last year, like, I can do more. Like, it's so, yeah, It's a difficult one.
It's a different night because it's a great quality to have. Like it's a really, you know, it's a winner's quality to have that that need and drive and passion. It's, you know, that's a great thing. You just got, if you are of that type, you've got to learn how to, because it can get you into trouble. Anything taken too far, like, you know, like we all know, like I've done that in the past. I've taken all sorts of behaviors to extremes, and you've just got to learn to know when you're kind of getting into that red danger zone and you need to come back a little bit. There.
Yeah, I think I get there almost every time we play Monopoly. I think that's the problem. Like it ends up in a massive family argument. No one speaks to me because they're like, Dan, you're not selling any of your properties. Like, you know, let's do deals. I'm like, no, because then I will lose. Like, I will just play it until it gets to that. So, okay. So talk to me a little bit. I know that you mentioned earlier, you had a little bit of a rough patch a few years back.
Yeah.
And I think obviously with COVID and, you know, it's become a lot more spoken about. So I'm really intrigued to talk a little bit more about that if you're comfortable.
Yeah, no, of course. I think like one of the things that has come out of the whole experience, I think, is the value of sharing these things. It's invaluable. Like it really, as someone who was kind of in the situation at one point, hearing stories of other people who had been through what I'd been through and gotten through it was one of the things that helped so much, and I really needed at the time. So yeah, like I've kind of pertained to, the film industry is not is not friendly in terms of hours worked, and after, I think it was, I started to have, I've never been a great sleeper. Never been a great sleeper. I've always struggled. I'm a high energy kind of person. I've never needed that much sleep. Like I'm not like I need 8 hours a night. Like 6 to 7 hours is usually pretty my sweet spot. But there was a good chunk of time where I was surviving on, you know, 3, 4, 5 hours less. For months on end. There was one particular job that I was working on that was really rough, and I was really struggling to sleep. And I was finding that I was getting home and my adrenaline was still like, I just couldn't get relaxed enough to sleep. And knowing that I only had like a 4-hour window to even get sleep, it was one of those cycles that I got into. It was impossible to sleep when I needed it. So I was given some Valium by a friend. And I didn't realize at the time what Valium was as a compound. I didn't realize it was a benzodiazepine. I didn't know the mechanics of it, how it works. I was just like, oh, it's a magic pill to solve my sleep problems.
Yeah.
So I started taking it, and it did what it said on the box. It, you know, it put me to sleep like that. It was like, oh, dreamy. So for the duration of that film, like 6 months, I was taking Valium every night. And I found like over the duration of that period, I was having to up the dose for it to be for it to work. Again, still completely unawares as to what I was actually taking as a compound. And then I finished that job and I was like, great, don't have to worry about this pill anymore. Threw them in the bin. Don't need them anymore. I can crack on with life. Whew. I didn't realize the whole world of pain that was about to come my way. Number one rule of benzodiazepines: never ever cold turkey. Like your body has apparently you should never take benzodiazepines for more than 2 to 3 weeks in a row. I'd been taking them for 6 months plus. Wow. Nightly, like daily. And you've just like ripped a cord out basically, because you've been it's something called GABA, and it works on the parasympathetic nervous system. And your body has just been getting this like influx of GABA, and then when you rip that out of your system, your receptors are so desensitized to the natural GABA that you produce, that you just go into, you know, this state of fight and flight. You are constantly in fight mode. You cannot get your parasympathetic system to kick in.
Mm-hmm.
So you just completely go out of whack, and you're absolutely wired 24 hours a day. Your anxiety levels are up here. I thought my sleep was bad before. I had no idea. Yeah. And apparently it's as dangerous as the withdrawal from benzodiazepine is more dangerous than the withdrawal from any other drug. More dangerous than coming off heroin, more dangerous than coming off alcohol, more dangerous than coming off some really, really strong drugs. Many people have died from it. Many people go into convulsions, fits. I had to go to hospital twice.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really obviously it was a really painful period, and I think God, I can't even remember how. I think I've probably tried to block it, how bad it got at one point, because there was a period of about it probably went on for about, the whole withdrawal process went on for a year, and there was a period of 6 months where I didn't get more than an hour's sleep a night. I'm not exaggerating. People are like, that's an exaggerate, and I'm like, that's not an exaggeration. I would be in bed at night, awake and wired, completely unable to drop into that sleep state, and what that does to you mentally is, like you said, you're not great on sleep. Imagine an hour's sleep a night for like 6 months.
I think I'd be in prison. Genuinely, I don't think I would not. No, I'm not good at all. Like, if I was getting an hour's sleep, give me a couple of nights and I'd be a nightmare to be around. Like, only a couple of nights, like, no. So how did you progress from that? Like, what was the recovery?
So once I'd kind of figured out, because it took a while for me to even figure out what was happening and why this was happening. Like, I eventually was like read up on benzodiazepines and realized that there's a proper protocol that you should go through when you're coming off benzodiazepines, especially if you've been on them for long term. There's a specific tapering program that you should do. So I went back onto some different medication, which was kind of similar but not exactly the same, and then did a proper tapering program to come off of that medication, and did it properly. Like, it took a good 6 months to kind of like taper, and just to do it gently in your system. But I did actually end up going out. I didn't actually head out to Thailand to go to rehab. I went out to Thailand because I was in such a bad state, and I thought, you know, maybe like a month or two of just lying on the beach somewhere drinking coconuts might help. But then when I got out there, I realized how bad a place I was really in. Like, I still not sleeping properly. The depression, the anxiety, I was getting really bad suicide ideation. Like, I could not get that thought out of my head. I was in like a much worse state than I thought. So whilst I was over there, I was in touch with a friend, and like, he was gold. He helped me find a rehab facility in the north of Thailand. Got in contact with the people there, and they got me up there. And I was in one place for a month on a kind of really strict rehab program, and then I did 2 months after that in a kind of like in a support, like it's not a rehab center, but it's I don't know how you describe it, a kind of like halfway house type thing where you can go, and I kind of did the rest of my recovery there. So it was a kind of 3-month thing altogether. Yeah.
What's rehab look in Thailand? Because as soon as you say that to me, I kind of imagine, I don't know if this is stereotypical, but I kind of imagine more like of a spiritual sort of meditation sort of area, as opposed to maybe what you would expect in this country. Am I hitting the mark there, or no?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, it was perfect for me as a like just how I am anyway. So I kind of ended up in the ideal place for myself, because your structure of your day was meditation in the morning, like 6 a.m. up, meditation. It's very structured. It's what you need when you're in that kind of state. You need that structure in your life, and you need support. So every morning you start off with meditation and yoga, have your breakfast, and then you'd have group sessions in the morning, group therapy sessions, and you'd have like maybe a one-to-one over that time as well. Lunchtime, they had a Muay Thai trainer, so I could do kickboxing. I mean, I wasn't doing it to any great standard at the time, but it was something, because you know, they knew the importance of physical activity in your recovery. So that was great. So I was doing Thai kickboxing every single day as well. And then in the afternoon, you'd have more sessions, more kind of therapy talk sessions. You might have like an art sessions. We had, they were great there. They honestly had so many different ways of doing things. Art sessions. We had even animal therapy, horse therapy, where you spend time with like, there was a kind of riding school nearby, a horse place. They were so innovative with like how they run things, like much more than I think that. I mean, I don't know, I don't have any experience of rehab centers in this country, but it just felt very holistic. Thai massage in the evenings, like, yeah, it was the ideal sanctuary for when you're in. I was in such a nervous state and just very sensitive state, and it was everything that I needed at the time. Very nurturing, very supportive. I was surrounded by people who were going through exactly the same kind of thing, which is what you need when you're going through something like that. You need to be understood. You just want to be understood, because it's such a unique scenario, such a unique situation. And I think if you haven't been through it, it's very difficult to really know where you're at. So yeah,
that does sound really cool. Like, I got into meditation like a couple of years ago. I've always been interested. I've always kind of been a bit more fascinated by the mind and obviously what you can achieve and stuff like that. And then a couple of years ago, like, I started my own like therapy journey. I've been doing internal family systems. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's
have I?
It's the creator is Richard Schwartz. So if you've not heard of him, read his books. They're phenomenal. Okay. So the therapy style is all based off it's like internal parts. So you have like 3 parts. You've got firefighters, which are kind of the distractors, those are like the thoughts that come into you. And then you have like the shunned parts, which are like the more damaged parts of yourself that, you know, can cause the deeper rooted emotional issues or behaviors. And then you've got the kind of the leading parts, which are I guess like the generational sort of thought processes that can be passed down. So not necessarily good, not necessarily bad, but just how your brain has been molded through things. So really fascinated on that. And a lot of that is meditation. A lot of that is you know, checking in with yourself, energies, I guess like feelings within yourself. So it could be when you first start like that kind of therapy journey, it's you know, when you're talking to a part, it could be a chest constriction, you know, and then until you kind of mold and develop a relationship with those parts and they trust you. So yeah, I think meditation for me has been something that I've really found valuable over the years. And I'd love to do, like, I'd not like to go to what you did, but I'd love to do a retreat in like Thailand or somewhere like that, where it's like morning of therapy, morning of yoga, meditation, like that sort of thing. I think it'd be so cool for the mind.
Yeah, honestly, like this rehab center is, I think to some degree, anybody and everybody who walked through those doors would, like, anybody could do that 1 month program at that rehab place and get something out of it. I mean, to some degree or another, everyone has an addiction. Like, for most people, it's their phone. Like, that's most people's addiction these days. Other people are addicted to food, other people are addicted to toxic relationships, other people are, do you know what I mean? There's an addiction for everyone, and I think to some degree, because we're all damaged to some level of degree, it's an inevitable part of the human process of walking this earth. You're gonna collect damage along the way. I think it's a very, very rare person that walks this earth without having gone through some kind of trauma or damage. So yeah, that rehab program is like, it probably could be relabeled as something else and run in a way that anybody could run through that program and come out the other end of it feeling so much better. But like you said, like Thailand's a great I mean, I think that's why I've been drawn to Thailand. I've been to Thailand I've been to Thailand 12 times now, I think. I've always been drawn there. Whether it's to go to like training camps out there. They've got great Muay Thai training camps out there. Got some really good kind of CrossFit style functional fitness places out there now. Meditation retreats, yoga retreats. I've just always felt myself drawn to Thailand because there's so much you can do out there in terms of self-development. So I highly recommend it. I can send you like a whole list of places that you can get to.
Please do. I'm planning actually this year, I'm doing a retreat for my business, but it's going to be in France. But I'm hoping to kind of incorporate some of that into it. So like morning of meditation.
We need to talk.
Yeah.
You do know I'm a yoga teacher as well, right?
Yeah, let's go. I'm 100% doing it this year because I've been thinking about it for years and I just want to do it. So I think the premise is basically going to be like morning yoga, then maybe, morning meditation, yoga, that sort of thing in the morning. And then I love my outdoor stuff now. Like I've got, like since COVID, I've definitely got my I've refound my love for hiking, exploring. So definitely going to do like a morning like hike as well, get up, have like lunch, afternoon of maybe, I don't know, like rock climbing or like, it's going to be a whole like adventure week, I think. So I don't know when or what it's going to look like, but that's kind of the idea at the moment.
Sounds awesome. Yeah, no, I like, seriously, we need to talk. I'm so down for stuff like that.
We'll do it for sure. Talk to me a little bit about what's next for you then.
Okay, what's next? So I think like for most people, COVID, gave me a bit of time to reflect and to slow down and reassess and really kind of think about what's important in life for me personally. And I love the film industry. I wouldn't have stuck with it for 20 years despite all of the hours and everything, the conditions that we work in, night shoots, working in freezing cold, very unglamorous conditions most of the time. I wouldn't have stuck, I wouldn't have been in it for 20 years had I not had a real love for it. But we move as people, we develop and we change, and our priorities change. So I am now entering my golden years and starting to reassess how I want to be living my life. And I think like most coaches, I'm looking to the online arena. So I've started to develop that since I finished my last film, and I wanted to do more of that kind of thing. Like the retreat thing for me is a big, like, that's definitely something that I've been considering. I've got friends who own some beautiful spots. I've got a friend at the moment who's developing a place out in Colombia, so I want to get out to there to have a look at that place. Travel is a big thing for me, always has been. When I had a bit more time, when I was in my 20s, at any opportunity I'd be on a flight. I just love it. And there's still a lot of places, like I felt like we all have. I've been so tied down to this country for the past couple of years. And now the freedoms are starting to come back. I want to get back on I want to get back out there, traveling. Basically, I think what I'm trying to get to is that I need a bit more freedom, both in terms of my time and my location. The film industry very much anchors me to London, Hertfordshire. So I feel very stuck here, and I don't want to have that feeling anymore. I want to have a bit more freedom. So yeah, that's kind of what's next for me, working on that, on getting myself a bit more free.
Well, we'll definitely have to talk about online coaching. I've been doing that for a few years. So if you want any advice or help or whatever, I'm happy to give that.
Oh, awesome.
In whatever capacity that is. But yeah, let's talk about some retreats. Colombia sounds phenomenal. I've never been to South America.
Same. Me never. Like I've done a lot of travel, but I still haven't touched South America yet.
I love the history as well. I want to do the Inca Trail, the Machu Picchu one. That would be a real moment for me. Go and do it for a couple of days.
Yeah, if hiking's your thing, and yeah, you'd absolutely love it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I think there's so much there for people to unpick, learn from. Where can people find more about you?
Okay, so at the moment, I'm kind of going through a process where I'm going to be rejigging and developing all of anything that I have online at the moment. But I guess the anchor for stuff is still my Instagram, JoJo Limited, JoJo Ltd. So that's always going to be my page. That's always going to be like the hub of things. But from there, I'll be making some changes as to, like, my website's going to be changing, my whole setup's going to be changing. I'm going to have a much more of a kind of online presence going forward. But it's all a work in process at the moment. But bear with me, hang on in there, it's coming.
It's exciting though. It's going to give you such. That's why I went online. I went online because I wanted the opportunity to help more people, have that freedom. The problem is with any base, like you say, you are locked in and you are restricted. Online is so good. I mean, it's so challenging in lots of ways, but it's so good because you do have that freedom. You can, train people from Colombia. Like when I was in India, I was still running my online business, and the only difference there was obviously the time difference. And it just means that you have the opportunity to travel, do whatever you want, and still earn an income, without sounding too like wishy-washy kind of passive income stream, like guru type thing. Like it does give you the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we all want at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate your time and picking your brain for the last, I don't know, maybe an hour, I think it is. But yeah, thank you for coming on. I think we'll definitely have to touch base again and get you on in the future.
No, definitely. Thank you so much, Dan. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No problem.